Hey guys, it's Sheridan. Welcome back to the Rooted in Jesus podcast. And today I'm here
Kate
with,
Arnold.
she does YouTube. I've been watching her videos for years and I love her
Aw.
channel. And I just love how she shines her light for Jesus. And not all her content is like faith based, but you can just see it through her. And it's just really, really cool. So tell us a little
Aw.
bit about your YouTube and how you started and all that
Okay,
good stuff.
I started it when I was like 14, I think. So I've had it for a pretty long time. I'm 21 now. But when I started it, it was just kind of like for fun. Like me and my friends would post like skits and parodies and just all kinds of like really cringy stuff that I would never like post anything like that now. Um, but I was really into YouTube myself, just like watching like fashion videos and lifestyle videos. And I just noticed like there wasn't really like not like necessarily a market, but there wasn't really like a brand, I guess, for girls that posted stuff that I could relate to in the sense of like modest fashion and
Hmm.
like I don't know, just stuff like that. I just felt like a lot of YouTubers were doing stuff that we couldn't relate to necessarily,
Yeah.
as far as just like fashion or hair or whatever. Um, so I started kind of taking it a little bit more seriously when I got older, maybe like 17, I think was when I first started posting more like serious videos. And it started with, I think it was my video, I Am Apostolic. I don't know, I just wanted to post one because I had never done a video about my faith before. And after that, I just really enjoyed it. It got like a really overwhelming response, which surprised me so much. Like that's kind of how my channel started growing was from that
Hmm.
video, which I never expected to happen. But I went from like 500 subscribers to like 2,000 in like a month, and I was like, "Whoa, what?"
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, so then after that, I was just like, "Okay, like I guess people really want to see this." And pretty much all the comments were like, "Make more stuff like this." So I started making videos about like friendship and confidence and stuff like that, but from like a biblical perspective. And so just as I've gotten older and as my channel's grown, I've just kind of tried to like focus more on kind of being like an older sister figure is kind of like how I view it. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the history behind it, I guess.
And that was my first video that I found of yours, the I'm Apostolic video, because I'm apostolic and I was like, is there any apostolic YouTubers out there? And I found you and I found Yappa and who else did I find? I found a few others, but it took a while.
Yeah, there's only like a few really. I feel like every time someone starts one, they just like kind of fall off, which is what I always say is like if
Hmm.
you're gonna make one, like you have to like be a little consistent because people really do like want to see that content.
Hmm.
And so there really is like a field for it. And it's kind of like it's kind of empty right now. Like there's not
Yeah.
really that many people that are doing it.
But yeah, that's how she started YouTube, and she also does kids ministry, and I think it's really cool. I watch a lot of your like action dance videos, and I think it's really cool and really cute. And I love kids ministry because I was a counselor at Bible camp for 3 years, and I just love it.
Aw.
And yeah, just talk a little bit about
So
that.
yeah, when I was a kid, I was like always that kid that had a child that was like this half of their size on their hip at all times, like always hurting my back, lugging someone else's kid around. And I've just always been like that kid that was trying to weasel their way into like working in the nursery and stuff.
Hmm.
So like I always knew that like that was my thing. And for years I kind of like went back and forth with like pediatrics or being a teacher.
Hmm.
And eventually I just realized like I wanted to be a teacher. And I think I always kind of knew that.
Hmm.
But I was just kind of like, it would be so cute to like get to like deliver babies or whatever. Like, I don't know. I was just I'm not good enough at like math and science to be a doctor, so it worked out. But I kind of knew that's what I wanted to do. And then whenever I turned 12, like that's the age in our church where you move up to
Hmm.
youth age. so you can sing or you can help out with nursery or kids or whatever. So I begged our Sunday school teachers, like, please let me help. Like, I want to help so bad. And they were like, okay. So I started with music. And at the time, like, we were doing like, Jesus, you're my superhero, and every move
Mhm.
I make, like, every week, which is what like everyone does. And I just started like finding, I would spend like hours looking for music to like make cool movements and stuff. So that kind of became like my thing after a while, was like I would, search for hours. Like my kids playlist probably has like 500 songs on it, just because whenever like a new album comes out, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be the first one to like find it. And um just because I know that, like, for me as a kid, I got bored of like the same three songs,
Mhm.
and I wanted it to be exciting. So I started with music, and then got into puppets, and then got into like teaching. I think the first like message I did was at my school. Actually, I went to a Christian school, and they asked me to speak in our chapel service when I was like in 7th grade, I think, for the elementary kids. And I was so nervous, but I was just like, I was like, oh my goodness, like I get to do this. So I got to do it, and it was so cool. I think I talked about worth, and I just talked about how, like, growing up, I always compared myself to my older sister, and I always thought I could never be like her, and she's so much better than me at everything. And I just talked about how, you know, like, our worth comes from God, and our
Mhm.
worth doesn't come from like, what we think about other people, and just kind of how like we became closer through stuff like that. And how we all just have our own things that are special about us, and she's better at some things that I can't do, and then there's things that I can do that she doesn't even like to do. So
Mhm.
that was kind of like where it started, and I realized, like, I actually really like teaching
Mhm.
for kids church. So like I started doing that more at my church, and then helping out. And then as far
Kids
as like the
camp.
videos on YouTube, I just, whenever I would go to like kids events and do those
Mhm.
songs, people would be like, can you make a video, because our church is kind of stuck in a rut with the same songs. And I was like, of
Mhm.
course I would love to, because we were in that same place. So that's kind of where those videos originated from, just because I was
Mhm.
like, it'll be fun to hang out with the kids and film with
Yeah.
them, because they're so funny. Also, I was just like, hopefully someone will use these in their church.
Mhm. Okay, so this is one of my favorite questions to ask everybody that I possibly can. So it is like, what is your favorite Bible verse and why?
So one of my favorite stories is the story of Queen Esther.
Mhm.
And I think it's just because it's like one of the few like specific women stories that we
Mhm.
have. So we're just like grasping. We're like, all right, let's just pick this whole story apart. My favorite is when she's speaking to her cousin, and her cousin tells her that she was put into her royal position for such a time. And I think we can equate that to like any position. Like,
Mhm.
obviously we're not in a royal position. We are a royal priesthood and all that, but
Mhm.
like, I just think, like, in terms, I always kind of compared it to when my YouTube started growing. Like,
Mhm.
perhaps God allowed you to have this platform for such a time as this. And so, like, I kind of use that. It's my lock screen, that scripture.
Mhm.
Um, it's just like a important verse. I feel like we always have to remember, like, anytime we get any sort of like following or attention or whatever, like, we need to be using it for such a time as this. And
Mhm.
right now we're living in crazy times, and
Yes.
that's why we need more apostolic young people to rise up and say, like, hey, I'll make videos about faith. I'll,
Mhm.
you know go on my Instagram and post more than just like a selfie or whatever. Like, I'll, post something meaningful that's going to help someone. Yeah, that's my favorite for sure.
Yeah, I really like the story of Esther. It's so really so cool.
It's
We
such
did
a
a
good
Bible
one.
study on it a couple months back, and it was really good with all the women at my church. It was really cool. Another thing that I wanted to ask you is, how do you live out your faith, and what are some tips for somebody that's like, I want to live for Jesus, but I don't know how to put like my faith
Yeah,
into
I feel
action?
like for young people, that's kind of like a tricky question because, especially, I think I kind of got lucky in the sense that my parents decided to send me to a Christian school.
Mhm.
Um, so a lot, like most of the kids there were Christian. I mean, not all of them were apostolic, but it
Mhm.
was easier. I still did face some, like, not necessarily like oppression, kind of like a big term, but like I still
Mhm.
did face some things where people were like, "Why do you wear skirts outside of school?" And I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay." And then, in Bible class, it would turn into a debate all the time about like, why do apostolic people do this? And then they'd all look at me and be like,
Mhm.
and I'm like, "Oh." Um, but I think it was easier. That's what I always say is I feel like everyone has a different situation. And for me, I just got lucky in that. In the workplace, I feel like that was a completely different situation for me because I had always been in this very like kind of
My
controlled
school was
environment.
attached to an
Apostolic church. So while
Mhm.
a lot of the kids that went there weren't apostolic, like I knew my teachers and the principal would like still support me and love me and
Mhm.
um they would always like let me know like we appreciate you taking a stand or whatever against these kids that were trying to question you, whatever stuff like that, which I really appreciated. But when I got to the workplace, it was like a whole new ball game because
Mhm.
it was in my city with all of these like public school kids and they all know each other and they all like hang out and I'm like this random girl who like came in with a skirt at a restaurant and everyone's like, we wear pants here. And I'm like, yeah, like I actually talked to the manager and they're like, oh, why do you do that? Like they all
Mhm.
want to know. And then there's like the nicknames. Everyone's like, oh yeah, the skirt girl. I'm like, yes, that's me.
I
So it's an
when you're
opportunity
able
to, I guess, like look a certain way at work. It gives you an opportunity to open those doors to talk about it.
Mhm.
Um, so, you know, and I also feel like we can't hide behind like the way that we dress. Like we also
Yeah.
need to live that in our spirit. And so rather than just wearing a skirt and like being like a jerk or whatever and like acting
Mhm.
like everybody else at work, I would really go out of my way to like be as nice as I possibly could. And working in the food service industry and trying to
Mhm.
be nice all the time is like a lot of it's a lot. Um, but I basically just like purpose, like, I'm not gonna let these people get to me. And I'm gonna be so nice that they can't help but like wanna go to my church with me and like
I
wanna
think just
like living out your faith. It's not just the way you look and it's not
Mhm.
just something that you say, like
Yeah.
people just kind of throw it around like, yeah, I'm
But it's
apostolic,
more
whatever.
than
Like it's about your attitude and it's about the way that you treat others. And I think that that's the most important thing is,
like
just
purposing.
to love others, treat others with kindness, and just to be positive. There's so much negativity in the world, especially at work. That's all you're
Mhm.
going to hear all day is like cuss word over here, person talking bad about somebody else over here, a customer yelling over here.
Mhm.
So it's important that we can be like that light that because people would really, after they realize, because I actually worked with my brother at Panera Bread, and
That's
after
so
a
funny.
while, people started realizing like they could come to us with, if they needed help. And it was
Mhm.
crazy. Like I actually had one of my coworkers come to my church one time, got the Holy Ghost,
That
literally
is
came to
really,
my
really
church,
cool.
and it was so cool. I was just like, oh my goodness, like that's crazy because I didn't think he would even show up. Like it was just my friend. We worked in the drive-through, and he was just kind of telling me about what was going on in his life, and I was like, well, if you want to come to church with me, you're welcome to. I'll text you the address, whatever. And he was like, I'm not really a church person, and I was like, okay, that's fine. Like you don't have to come, but if you'd like to. And he just decided to come, and somebody in my church was praying with him, and then I just like looked over and I'm like, oh my gosh, you just got the Holy Ghost.
That was so cool.
It was so cool. So I guess just being like being like a willing vessel and
Mhm.
make like, making sure that people know that like you're there and you're there to be someone that they can talk to or they can count on, and making sure that you're being, kind and you're being positive, because the media, I feel like, really tries to portray Christians as like mean and
Mhm.
spiteful and vindictive, and
Yeah.
like we're against all these things, and you know what I mean? So I feel like we need to really like almost overcompensate sometimes just to like
Mhm.
show people like, hey, we're actually nice, and like we actually want to be friends with you.
Mhm.
um so yeah, that's kind of how I try to live it
That
out,
was super good and super cool. So the last
Thank
thing
you.
that we're gonna talk about is using your platform for God's glory, because a lot of people just post whatever, and a lot of people are just really, really self-absorbed when it comes to social media, and they think it's
Mhm.
all about me, it's all about looking a certain way, it's all about followers and all that So
kind of
how do you
stuff,
go about
yeah.
using your platform for the glory of God?
Well, I completely agree with what you're saying. First of all, the followers thing just
Mhm.
kills me every time. I'm like, come on, y'all, why are we still caring about this? This is not
Mhm.
so crazy to me. I mean, I think Instagram has specifically has kind of
Mhm.
become this place where people just post like, me and my sister always say it's like a highlight reel, because it really is like, you're
Mhm.
not going to be posting like in a when you're really sad or whatever. You're not going to be posting like if your boyfriend like breaks up with you or whatever. Like, you're not going to be posting those things. You're going to be
Mhm.
posting like your best self and putting your best foot forward, just because that's kind of what we've been conditioned to, like that's what Instagram's for. I feel like there's so many ways that you can use your platforms, your different social
Sites.
media. And of course, posting like a funny tweet, there's nothing wrong with that. Posting
Mhm.
a photo of yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. But when it just becomes like all about that is kind of
Mhm.
like when it becomes like a problem, I feel like.
Mhm.
For me, I feel like I don't think I'm like the best writer ever. So
Mhm.
I never was like, oh, I'm gonna turn my Instagram into a blog and
Yeah.
I'll post all this stuff. I've taken like a lot of speech classes and I do feel comfortable like with public speaking. And YouTube is more like of a controlled environment, because you can edit your own videos
Mhm.
and you can choose what to put out there. So for
I
me,
wanted to
like,
be
be more vocal about my faith. I wanted to share with more people, and I wasn't really sure how to do that, but I knew I loved YouTube. So I was like, you know what? We'll post this video, this I am
Mhm.
apostolic video, and we'll see where it goes. And looking back, I mean, it's one of the cringiest videos I've ever made. It's like, hi guys, if you're gonna see it now, I'm apostolic. Like, I don't know why I felt so
You
dramatic
need
about
to
it,
be
but you live and you learn. So yeah, it's a little cringy looking back, but um I feel like, you know, um I feel like YouTube and then like Facebook and Twitter, you can definitely use those
Mhm.
to kind of help others and
I see on
broadcast your
Facebook
faith.
all the
And
time.
right now there's like this trend going around called testimony takeover. So I just
And kind
posted
of talk a little
mine,
bit about.
my testimony and stuff. And I think that's so cool, because I
Mhm.
have so many friends on Facebook from when I used to work at Panera and when I used to work at this coffee shop. So like, I have a lot of friends on there that aren't familiar with God or with church.
Mhm.
And so like, if they see those kinds of posts, they're going to want to like know what's going on. And obviously on Facebook you can share your church services and you can
Mhm.
share like different things. And I think you can do that on Instagram as well. I just
Mhm.
think that's something that we haven't really tapped into. I
Yeah.
think right now the thing is kind of like bloggers and like fashion and stuff like that, which is fine. There's nothing wrong
Mhm.
with that. There's this
But I
whole
just
part
think
of
that.
Instagram we haven't tapped into as far as like
Mhm.
using it for God, really.
Mhm.
But I don't really know how we'd go about that, to be honest. That's why I like YouTube, because
Mhm.
I feel like you can post however long videos you want, and you can talk about whatever. Yeah, I don't know. For me, like I feel like YouTube is like my
Mhm.
I don't want to say like it's my ministry, because I feel like my ministry is like kids.
Mhm.
Um, but it's kind of evolved into that the longer I've been doing it, because I know that a lot of young girls, they could be watching anything. They could be
Mhm.
watching, you know, whatever, but they choose to like watch me, and they choose to send me messages and open up to me like we know each other, and I
Mhm.
appreciate that so much, and it means a
I'm
lot
not
to
gonna
me.
stop
So
doing
doing it anytime soon. I really enjoy it, and I really appreciate when people reach out. It really does mean a lot.
I
So
love your
yeah.
videos. And by the way,
Thank
for all
you.
the listeners on Spotify, you can go to my YouTube channel, and the link will be below to her channel in the video version of the podcast. But it was so, so, so nice having you today.
Thank you for
And
having me.
I loved doing this. This was so fun.
Thanks. I love doing it too.
Guys, just use your platforms for God's glory and live out your faith. And I hope this podcast has inspired you to do something for God and just to do your best to shine your
I'll
light. See
see.
you in the next podcast. Love you guys so, so much. Bye.
Bye.